So I quickly want to mention that this is the APS renamed recently from the Parallel Data Warehouse. It basically was just an evolution of the product where in the PDW we had relational data in there. Now we've advanced it to include an HDInsight or a Hadoop region in there. So we've evolved the name to indicate it's more than just relational data within the appliance. It's also non-relational, unstructured data or Hadoop data. So the traditional data warehouse, as many of you are probably aware, is a situation where you have a data sources. On top of that, you have your ETL, and then you build your data warehouse from that, and usually have a bunch of BI solution tools on top of that, reporting tools, dashboards, scorecards, reporting, things like that. That's been a traditional data warehouse for many years, and it works great until the last few years we're starting to see a tipping point where it's breaking. And you have to look at it and say, is my current solution going to handle my future needs in this situation in there? And unfortunately, I have to jump through here. So what we're seeing is, let me give it one more try to see if it'll work. Hey, it works. So what we're seeing is increasing data volumes in there. So a lot of the traditional data warehouses are now having to handle a lot of additional data. This could mean multiple ERP systems, CRM systems. Generally, when you give the users a data warehouse and they start running BI reports on top of it, they want more and more data. Maybe they want data from additional sources. Maybe they want, instead of 5 years, they want 10 years of data. And there becomes a problem with handling all that type of data. You're usually limited to a SAN, and you go to your network guy and you say you need more SAN, and he gets all upset. And so you're always running into these bottlenecks in there. So that's where this traditional data warehouse breaks down. Also, the real-time performance. The users are expecting that they're going to get the queries back fast now. They don't want to wait hours or even minutes now. They want seconds to get their results back in there, especially when they're doing slicing and dicing on a dashboard or scorecard in there. Well, that becomes a challenge, especially as decreasing data volumes happen. Then you also want to keep that same real-time performance in there, and that's where traditional data warehouses have a tough time keeping up with that. The other is non-relational data. So we start seeing companies wanting to use devices, data from devices, web data, sensor data, even social data like Twitter data and such. When I first heard about that a few years ago, I was like, well, why would people want to use social data or Twitter data in there? And you start seeing some great examples of that. We're seeing clients, especially when it's a sentiment analysis. They want to see how people view their products or their stores and such. For example, one client was a department store, and they were monitoring the Twitter feeds, and they were noticing complaints about their dressing rooms in there. And you know, most people, they won't go and complain to a person live. If they have a problem, they go to Twitter nowadays and they complain about it. So they noticed that they had a redesign of their dressing rooms that people didn't like, so they decided to change them again, and they took a couple stores and they modified the dressing rooms and made them bigger. They addressed the complaints of privacy and weights and such like that, and they found once they changed these two stores, all of a sudden the results on Twitter were very positive, and they also saw an increase in their sales in these stores. And so they rolled out that change to all the stores across the country, and they saw a 12% increase in their sales once that change was done. So that's a great example of how Twitter data can be used to make better business decisions. And the other is cloud data. So a lot of companies now are having data either starting on the web. Maybe they have payroll data on there, or using Salesforce, or other web applications are causing data to land on the cloud first, and they want to pull that into their data warehouse. Well, a lot of data warehouses, traditional ones, can't handle cloud data. That's not part of what they allow in there. So this is where we come up. Let's see, I have to jump these slides. With the modern data warehouse. This is where the APS comes in there. So at the bottom level, you have your ability to handle relational, non-relational data, Hadoop data. The data can be on-prem or external in clouds. On top of that, you still want to have your ETL and data quality master data management. We also want a single query model, and we'll get into PolyBase, which is technology that allows that abstract layer so you can hit relational, non-relational data at the same time without having to learn with different technologies. And then finally, on top of that, you still want to have your BI and analytics. You want to be able to use all those current tools that you use now on this new modern data warehouse solution. So if we look at some of the roadblocks that happen that can cause clients to have a roadblock with building a modern data warehouse, some of the things we typically hear is, well, they want to keep their legacy investment. Well, if you go with that solution, the problem is you're limited in the scalability. Chances are you need a forklift approach. If your hardware can't support what you need to go and back up your database, get new hardware, and restore it on there, transfer all the security over. It's a really big pain in there. And the chances are your current legacy investment can't handle these new data types, especially the non-structured or Hadoop data. Some clients say, well, we'll just come up with a big data solution. We just want to use Hadoop for everything, for a data warehouse. It's a big issue. Hadoop, while it's great in certain use cases, it's not good for using a large data warehouse in there if you want to get queries returned back quickly in there. So we strongly recommend against using Hadoop only as your data warehouse solution in there. Instead, use a combination of Hadoop and the data warehouse, where we'll get to in a minute. Some clients will decide to go buy a whole new hardware appliance, a big giant appliance that is very expensive. It has its own way of doing things, its own sort of solution. That involves a lot of migration, a lot of understanding this new technology. A lot of them don't have Hadoop as an integration point in there. Better solution is, if you're using SQL Server now, to stick with an approach that's going to allow you to use your existing skill set. And then finally, some companies offer a BI solution in there, but the problem is that that's usually a solution on top of your existing data warehouse, and you run into a complexity with that. You run into speed issues, performance issues, and then it generally requires the users to learn a whole new different technology. And as you probably know, users are very slow to adopt new technology in there. To try to get somebody out of their Excel spreadsheet that they know and love and ask them to learn a whole other tool set is very difficult to achieve. So looking at the Microsoft Analytics Platform system, it's ready for big data, meaning we support relational, non-relational data in a single appliance in there. That non-relational data is a Hadoop cluster based on Hortonworks. We have a technology called PolyBase that integrates Hadoop with the relational data using regular T-SQL in there. We also allow continuous integration with your Microsoft BI tools, so if you like to use Excel or Power View or Power Pivot, all those can be used unchanged with the APS. All you're doing is changing the connection string.